Hi, I'm Laura Lawton with Lawton Printing Services. Welcome to Candidate Confidential. We're happy to have you join us. We're happy to join Spokane Talks Online for this important civic service. The Lawton team has been serving the Inland Northwest for over 77 years. What keeps us motivated is the continuous evolution of our company to better serve the clients we work with every day. We are also fortunate to have so many people willing to step up to serve our communities. Being a candidate and civil servant is too often a thankless job. I know you join me in thanking these forward-thinking individuals for their dedication to us all. With that, I thank you for taking the time to learn more about the people who want to lead our communities. Enjoy the debate and give Lawton a call for any of your marketing, printing, or mailing needs. Thank you.
On behalf of Spokane Talks Online, welcome to Candidate Confidential. I'm your host, John Allison, and very pleased to be joined today by Susan Swanson, who's the Democratic candidate for the 7th Legislative District in Washington. Also running in this position is Jacqueline Maycumber, who chose not to participate in our program today. We'll take a brief break and get right to the discussion.
Proposition 2 is not about politics. It's about protecting Spokane's economy.
I'm opposed to Proposition 2.
I'm opposed to Prop 2.
I'm opposed to Proposition 2.
Proposition 2 just doesn't make sense.
I am opposing Proposition 2.
I'm against Proposition 2.
I'm opposed to Proposition 2.
I'm opposed to Prop 2 because we have to protect Spokane's economy.
Susan Swanson, who's running for the Democratic position for the 7th Legislative District. Ms. Swanson, you have spent many years working outside the United States in a career and back now have chosen to run for office for the first time. Tell us why you decided to jump into this race.
Well, the reason why I decided, John, to jump into this race at this time is that I felt that the 7th Legislative District was not being adequately serviced by its representatives, that they need to be doing a better job. And I don't feel that they're hearing the people and their needs. So I feel like I'm an individual that's willing to be strong and brave, just like my Navy background, and support them and provide them what they need.
Sure. The 7th Legislative District, the northeast corner of the state, is a lot of wide open land, and the public lands component of this district is very prominent, and it's important to obviously a lot of the people and the voters who live there. What are some of the things about the public lands and that aspect of life in the 7th District that you find most important, that you have on your mind if you are elected?
Well, predominantly, I want to keep our public lands public, and I want to save that. I don't want to see our public lands sold off to private entities, and that's a protection that I think is on, that's a concern that's on a lot of people's minds. So we have these beautiful wide open spaces that provide us with recreational opportunities and with other resources that are they're just pristine and they're ours, and we need to protect that. So.
One of the issues that has come up in recent months involves water and water rights, the so-called Hearst decision. Have you studied the impact of that, and what are some of your ideas for maintaining access to water in the 7th District? That's obviously an important thing for ranchers, farmers, and property owners in general.
Hearst decision is state Supreme Court ruling on the 1917 Washington State Water Code, and it protects senior water rights and puts it's tied to the Growth Management Act and puts the management of water into the county commissioner's hands. And so, is it perfect? No, but I think that with collaboration we can get there. And that's what's not happening, is there's obstructionism and we want it one way and not the other way. And so therefore, the people are hurt in the long run with that. And I'm speaking specifically about the capital budget. capital budget was held hostage to the Hearst decision, which was an unrelated topic. And when the capital budget is not funded, then public items such as schools and school reconstruction or remodeling, hospitals, additions, and new facilities, healthcare, Forest Service management, those items don't get their funding that the state match that our elected officials promised that they would provide. So when the capital budget did not pass, 19,000 union and non-union jobs are at stake. They don't have anything to build. And this is an industry that's already suffering in employment. There's not enough qualified people, and the ones that we do have aren't being provided the work. So we've thrown a whole segment of people under the bus for the capital budget not being funded. So that's where I am.
The Hearst decision, deals mostly with access to water, but in addition, there are issues of protecting water, keeping it clean and available. What are some of your primary issues and beliefs with regard to environmental protection in the 7th District?
Well, it's an area that I'm not totally knowledgeable of, to be honest, but it's an area that I'm willing to learn about and represent the people of the 7th to make sensible and reasonable decisions. I certainly believe in clean water and access to it. I think that Hearst is, it's important to get it right, and we need to collaborate to that end and make sure that we have the availability of water for, eons to come. So
we talked a little bit about the district and open lands, but at the same time, I think there's a recognition that the district, like any other in the state, needs to keep pace with economic development and finding ways to create jobs for people who are living in the district. So talk about your vision in terms of the future of the district and economic development.
Well, I think one of the things that we could do to improve economic development for all of our rural cities is to partner with education and trades. We need more CTE programs, that's career technical education in our schools. And by partnering with our unions that have trade programs, wonderful trade programs, then we can increase our job market for other trades. And it's not just trades. You have culinary arts and a whole host of other trades that could be improved upon. We need to do this in order to provide something for our kids to stay here for instead of leave and not come back. So I find that our main street of our rural towns are becoming ghost towns, and I think part of that is because we haven't had economic development going on, and the resources. I think we have a capital budget with $4 billion. When you divide that up between the 39 districts, that's roughly 80 million if it were distributed equally. And our current representation believes in smaller government, so they turn a lot of money back instead of helping develop projects. Broadband's been around for over 11 years, and we don't have adequate broadband services, very limited broadband services. We need to make sure that that's expanded for our rural areas.
How about health care in the 7th District, in the rural districts in particular? That's another challenge in more rural areas. What are some of the ideas that you've thought about in terms of advancing health care for people in the district?
Well, my idea, number one, is I think we need to have a single payer system for our state in the event that something should occur with our federal health care system, that we don't leave our people stranded high and dry without health care. I believe health care is a right. Our rural economies are very dependent on health care. Without it, we'll dry up and wither away. So I know that we have 3 areas in particular where they're dependent on the Medicaid match, and without that, those towns will dry up. We're talking Chewelah, Tenasket, and another. So I think that we need to partner with the insurance companies and with the state and make sure these happen for everyone.
I know you've obviously been involved in education. Talk about your education background, your work in education, and then transition, if you would, into some ideas you have for the district in terms of helping to keep pace with advancements in education.
Okay. So my experience in education is as a transportation manager, and I've worked in that field in Germany, Guam, and Japan, managing the Department of Defense Education Activity Transportation Services. And with that, I managed a budget. I was responsible for training. So in that, I worked closely with base commanders and school principals and leaders about the best way to provide safe and secure, which is very key, services for our students. So it was a job I enjoyed a great deal. So and also my husband is a school superintendent in OMAC. So I'm kind of connected based upon my background and with my current community involvement. I've always supported the schools. So I think that education, it's guaranteed by our state constitution to be amply funded, and it's in Section 9 of our state constitution. And that it's available for everyone regardless of race, color, religion, creed. And I don't feel that education is given the priority that it should. Obviously, McCleary was passed in the operating budget, but now that the capital budget is tanked this year, a lot of the items in the operating budget in McCleary aren't going to be met. The classroom sizes aren't going to be improved through construction projects. So I think we need to provide more attention to education and develop educational programs that improve our communities. And it's just cut and dry, plain and simple.
When you talk to others, maybe in the bigger cities in the state, about education, are there things that you think that the leaders in the larger cities and communities don't understand about rural districts, places in places like the 7th District that you'd like to tell them about?
Well, absolutely. I think that rural districts have such a challenge because it costs more money to operate in a rural district and get it the items that it needs and its concerns met. It doesn't come as easy to rural districts. Let's start with bus rides. Kids ride on school buses to get to their schools, sometimes in excess of an hour, and because the distances are so great to the people we serve. The larger schools seem to have more availability to programs than our smaller rural schools. And it's just as important for our rural schools to have every equal opportunity as what our larger schools have. And that's not being met all the time. So, yeah.
You live in OMAC.
I do.
And it's hard for, I would imagine, for a person representing the 7th District to feel as local, perhaps, as in some other districts. You're covering multiple counties, a very large area. What philosophies do you think about in terms of how you would help the counties interrelate to each other and think as a district as opposed to individual counties?
Well, I think the key to that is through our local county representation, our county commissioners, to partner together. This is, as we mentioned earlier, 11,000 square miles, and I've already traveled 7,000 plus since I've decided to run for this and represent the people. So I know what a challenge it can be to get from one end to the other of our district. I just believe that we need to do a better job of the collaborative efforts with our county commissioners as well as with our representatives and our senator to adequately relay what our needs are and what our ideas for that are. I think one of our greatest strengths is our people and the ability to come together and discuss civilly what our issues are and how we think we can achieve them, and then work together for the common good.
I'd like to follow up on that for a minute if I could. You're running as a Democrat in a district that's recently been more Republican, and statewide, of course, there's been a lot of discussion and focus on the fact that the two parties aren't getting along as good in recent years as they might have in times past. If you were elected, how would you personally try to bridge that gap, reach across the aisle?
Well, this is my favorite question that you've asked so far. It's been 28 years since you've had a Democrat sitting in the House seat, so almost 30. And what I find is that the Western Democrats, the Seattleites and Olympian leaders, a lot of people have the criticism that they implement law that satisfies their needs with little regard to what we need here in Eastern Washington. And I honestly believe that it's time for a change, that if we would elect sensible Democrats to represent Eastern Washington, then we could reach across the aisle and say, we're on the same team here, but let me tell you why that doesn't work for Eastern Washington. This doesn't work because, and spell it out for them, and then the light bulb will go off. But right now, it's like a magnet with opposing poles that doesn't want to get together. And I think what the solution is to have Democrats working with Democrats to come together and they'll shake hands and get the work done.
Well, I'd like to give you a couple of moments to address the voters directly and talk about why they should elect you in November.
Thank you, John. So I would like to thank each and every person that's watching this broadcast right now and say that I am a terrific listener. My door would always be open. My phones would be always available to listen to you and your concerns. I feel that I'm the sensible candidate that will work together with other leaders to make sure that our 7th Legislative District grows and flourishes into something that we can all be proud of. And I ask for your vote. Thank you very much.
And Susan Swanson, thank you for joining us today. And on behalf of Spokane Talks Online, thank you for joining Candidate Confidential. And please do vote in November. Goodbye.